Hello friends and welcome to Sulyce Gaming. Today we'll be reacting to New World's developer update that they launched yesterday, so January 19th? Yeah, January 19th. Director Scott Lane and a few other developers got together and discussed January updates, upcoming updates for February, and shortly thereafter. So this is a blind reaction. A little bit of context. So I'm a community manager for a Discord group of about 250 individuals. Link below if you want to join, by all means. It's discord.gg/Sulyce Gaming. Our primary effort is New World, but we also dabble in like Lost Ark, that's coming out in February, Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, which you can follow that handle at The Natural Ones D&D. But our main effort is New World. And so without further ado, we're going to get into this video. Again, this is a blind reaction. I have not watched any of this. So you're going to see raw reactions from somebody who has invested a lot of time and effort into building a community of 250 individuals over the last 4 or 5 months. Really before that. I've alpha tested this game, Bravo tested this game. I'm also an employee at Amazon, so I had the chance to dabble in the game prior to everything that launched. But I'm not affiliated with Amazon Game Studios. I'm gonna be very clear about that. All right, let's get into the video. All right, I'm gonna go on mute. We're gonna watch a little bit of it. I'm gonna react to parts that I think merit reaction, and I hope you enjoy. So let's get into it.
Hi everybody, my name is Greg Henniger. I am a member of the community team and I'm joined by Scott Lane, the game director. And we heard you loud and clear that you liked the last one, and so we're here to do another dev update video. We're going to try our best to keep it a little bit shorter this time, but still go into what you're interested in. We're also going to be talking more about current...
Yeah, so their first video, I mean, it was like hours and hours. It was really good, and it came at a really opportunistic time. It was much needed. The community was like hungry for something from Amazon Game Studios. A lot was happening with the servers, some server merger issues, and this is where they all came together to discuss that intimately. So it was very important, but it was long.
News, things that is coming, in the near future. So some of those topics might be, January. We're going to deep dive into January, the PTR, what you can expect, how we use it on our team. February is really about bugs and polish. We're going to deep dive into that. Then we're going to have Dave V back on to talk about weapon balance and future things coming to the weapons. And at the end of the show, we're going to have questions from you, the community, and from our creators.
Yeah, and you might notice we're unmasked, and I just want to make sure everyone is clear that we take COVID very seriously. Everyone you see today will have been tested within the last 24 hours and cleared.
All right, I have to do this. Do y'all see the top left screen? It says New World, and it's that wood burnt image. That was from us, right? Specifically the lore seekers. So lore seeker Cash, right? He created that wood burnt logo. So that is actually us. That is the lore seekers. That is Sulyce Gaming, or currently Sulyce Gaming. All right, I had to
be here. I also want to echo what Greg touched on. The last video came out a lot longer than we wanted, so we're going to do everything we can to keep this thing to 45 minutes or less.
We will try. We will definitely try.
Yeah.
We just we're extending the winter convergence event. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, when we were, over the break, we noticed that people were responding in a really good way to it, and we thought that a lot of people didn't get the opportunity to play over the break, so we thought we'd leave it running an extra 2 weeks
to include me. So working at Amazon, I'm actually an operations manager at a fulfillment center. So this was peak season. My community, of Discord knows that I was completely detached during this awesome event because we were pushing product, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, a day. So I was definitely busy and out. So I'm really glad they're extending this.
Give more people the chance to experience it and play it.
Nice. So did you jump in? Did it change your play style at all?
Yeah, it had a really positive effect on me. Probably one of the reasons I wanted to extend it. When you get to the higher levels of the game, the mid to end game, you don't really go through those starter zones. You find yourself just kind of fast traveling around them.
Right.
This got me running through, and they actually felt different, seeing the lost presence on the ground. And if you just happen to be lucky enough to see a Gleamite meteor come in, it's like, it was a wow moment. It felt really cool. And even the winter festivals, going over to those locations and getting those special rewards, it just created a lot of fun and reminded me how cool the world is and how easy it is to get lost in the world. So I really liked that.
Yeah, the Gleamite showers, that was hands down. So already the video and the audio in this game is remarkable. It's already stunning. If you play this game, if you're into it, it is absolutely the top MMO out there for graphics and audio. Combine that expertise into a holiday event where a meteor shower essentially happens randomly in the area. It was the most beautiful thing I've seen happen in a game spontaneously that I wasn't expecting. And if you're in the trees, if you're in the wood line, that meteor shower destroys all the trees around you. It's actually very impressive. Not only sound, not only audio, not only visual, good Lord, but it's also impacting the environment in that way where it destroys the trees around you. Absolutely stunning.
Yeah, I loved the Aurora Borealis that was in the sky, and it kind of just gave New World this fresh paint. So if you guys haven't checked it out, you should definitely jump in. So this is going to be a great episode, and let's get started.
Yeah, we're super excited.
All right, and now we are joined by Mike Willett, the World Experience Lead, and Dave Verifai, the Creative Director.
Yeah.
So this first question is going to be for you, Dave. What are some of the main features that we're going to be able to expect coming in January?
There's two main features we're releasing with January. The first is obviously Mutators. We talked about it a little bit last time.
Yep.
Mutators are a way to sort of enhance and make the expedition experience even more challenging, right? So there's 10 difficulty levels that players can sort of climb through over time. And as they do that, not only do the enemies get harder, but we add new challenges like the curses. And what we're seeing in PTR is that we release the first set of mutators, right? There's a rotation that they go through. So those will change every week and bring new challenges, and the dungeons that are being mutated will change. So it's a way to sort of increase the challenge of expeditions and also sort of continue to add variety over time as we sort of shuffle the schedule and shuffle which expeditions are being mutated.
So, quick reaction to that. This reminds me of World of Warcraft. It reminds me of the I'm going to bomb this, but kind of the elite runs. We had to get the special keys to run through it. It's been a long time since I've played World of Warcraft, but this is actually a very smart tactic used by developers to kind of keep things fresh while they're developing new content. It is kind of brilliant, right? So you can go through the same content, the same dungeons, or here expeditions. You can go through the same instance, but have such a different experience. Again, it's very smart how they do that to keep things fresh again until that patch or until that DLC comes out. But very good tactic.
Nice. Mike, is there anything that might not be considered a main feature like mutators that we should still be excited about coming in January?
Yeah, absolutely. So because mutators are being released, we want players to be able to get to those locations quicker. So we've added 6 additional spirit shrines throughout Eternum. So a lot of those are going to be co-located next to obviously which expeditions are getting mutations, but also towards the end game content like arenas. So look for those. In addition to that, we've reduced the cost of fast travel, so it won't cost as much as off.
Yes, I'm sorry. This is probably the most important thing to me so far up to this point. 4 minutes into the video, absolutely more fast traveling. I'm lazy as hell. I don't want to run around for the next 6 hours trying to get somewhere. That's it. I'm done. I don't need to watch the next 30 minutes. But okay, let's go.
Okay, and this one's for you, Dave. So why did we decide to introduce a new resource instead of just increasing the gear score? I know a lot of people are talking about that.
Yeah, that's a great question, and that sort of gets to the second main feature we released here, which is the Umbral upgrade system. So players will be upgrading their gear via Umbral materials, and we did that rather than just sort of introduce gear that goes to 625 organically in the world. and that we didn't want to invalidate all the gear that people have acquired already, right? So people that have acquired their really cool 600 Legendary, or even now we've announced the 590 cool gear, can use Umbral to upgrade. So they can sort of continue to invest in what they've acquired already and sort of build the power of that rather than have to go out and get completely new gear. So I think it's a sort of a cool new pattern, and it creates another cool resource that players can get through, mainly mutators, but also through the gypsum casts and crafting. So we're trying to integrate a lot of different ways to get this resource into the game.
Is it going to affect the expertise system at all?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So we're raising the cap of expertise to 625, and we're sort of integrating the expertise and gypsum together. So as you use gypsum to increase your gear after 600, each point upgrade that you get will also increase your expertise. So that's how you'll increase your expertise past 600. Previous to 600, it'll be the current means, the gypsum cast, the bumps you get in the world, things like that. But after that, it'll be the Umbral system.
Okay, awesome. And I know a lot of people have been talking about this next question, so of course I'm going to give it to you, Mike.
Oh, yay, me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Why did we decide to rely on tuning orbs for mutated expeditions as well?
So we needed a method of control of access, basically because we want to make the rewards very valuable to players. So we want to make sure that your time investment is equal to the reward that you're going after. So that was the initial impetus for that system. So in January, we're going to allow players to also purchase them in the faction shop and craft them. And so that's one of the bigger differences, and we're going to monitor through the PTR and play sessions, like what is that rate? Does it need to increase or decrease based upon play patterns and basically feedback from the community and what we're seeing in the actual data. So we're going to look forward to seeing how all that stuff plays out. And by the time this is released, we might have already gotten data because we're weeks in the past now for the viewers.
So this is like a bone of contention, at least from the community and from those outside of the community that I've spoken with. But the key system. So it's not like really any other MMO where you can just walk into a dungeon or walk into an expedition. You have to have the key that's resource that you have to build yourself. Now this is no different than having to earn your key in World of Warcraft to get to the harder dungeons, the mythics. There you go, came to me finally. You have to get your mythic key in order to get into the mythic dungeon. Okay, Roger, got it. So this is really no different in that sense. But even the base level, if you just wanted to get into Genesis or Lazarus, right, you have to get the key to get into it. So what they're saying is not only are you having to get the key for the base level of the expedition, but they're also having you go and craft the mutation key to get into the mutated version of that expedition. So I get why they're wanting to gate it. You just heard they want to gate it so that there can be better rewards given out of those dungeons or expeditions. Okay, I get it. It's just something to consider if you're wanting to get into that in-game content now. Is it still going to be gated in that way?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to add to that. I think, in the past, I think we were probably a little too strict on our gating, right? And I think this is the first step in sort of loosening that with adding access to the faction shop. And we'll be continuing to look at it. And I think, make sure we hit a balance that feels good for everyone.
And something else to note is that we're going to make the vanilla expeditions, those keys available in the faction shop as well. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be a big difference. And then once you've actually defeated the vanilla version of the expedition, you'll receive the codex for going into the mutated versions of those expeditions. And those keys are universal, so you can use any mutated orb in any mutated expedition.
Okay. All right. So I know when we look at like the PTR and stuff, we also look at the forums, we look at anecdotal evidence, but looking at data and how players are interacting directly in game is really important to us as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just one vector that we gain, our knowledge of like how the game's being ingested and like how players are going about like defeating things. So we're going to try to look at like what were their gear score values for when they cleared certain difficulties,
right?
Like which mutations are obscenely hard and for what given reason. So there's so much scale that we can do internally, and then we get a lot more data once we have a lot more people playing. And so we're starting to see pretty awesome patterns in Lazarus and Garnet Genesis and Dynasty.
Awesome. All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
Absolutely.
Now we are joined by Katie Kaczynski, the senior producer. I know we talked a little bit about it in this last segment,
Yes.
talking about the PTR, but what have we learned so far in the January release, things that we found off the PTR?
So one of the big things that we kind of touched upon in our last segment was just the frequency of mutator orbs and how you get them, and that's something that's like high on our list to just keep aware of and monitor like usage and playthroughs and completion times, things like that. Next thing we're looking at is, and this was some feedback that came in that we're examining, is like how can we get lower level expeditions mutated? So it's a really good question. The things that we're dealing with are like, hey, does it have like the same length of time of experience? Also, does it have the same number of bosses, same number of chests? So it's things that we need to equate to see if there's value there. So that's another thing that we're exploring. One of the other big things that we found, and including in our own playthroughs and PTR, is some of the named enemies coupled with some of the mutations are really hard,
Right.
very difficult. So that's something that we're modifying and we'll continue to balance as we get feedback and see data.
Yeah, are you going to want to try to keep some of them on the higher level just to get the people who really want to go after the super tough stuff?
It depends if it's a good strategy, meaning there's a mechanic around this and it's something that players can overcome or use tactics to defeat. But if it's just straight up broken, then yeah, that's a problem.
Right.
So
I love that response. I absolutely love that response. It needs to be difficult. It needs to be hard. Dungeons or expeditions absolutely need to be relevant, where it's not just you go and you run through it quickly for speed and then it's done. But the strategy, every expedition will get to that point. But I love how they said they're going to try to keep some of it really difficult, right? But not to the point of it being broken. I think there is a clear difference between having something broken and just dealing with it, than learning strategy and learning the mechanic. So I love that response. Keep it hard, but make it realistic and not game breaking.
There's a fine line between fun and
Right.
please kill me.
Exactly. Exactly.
One thing I wanted to add, I think another piece of feedback we got on the Umbral system during PTR is that requiring items to be gear score 600 to use Umbral to upgrade them was a bit onerous. People said, hey, these are really hard to get. Sometimes you get bad luck and you've been chasing for one for a long time. And if you don't have them, it feels like you're locked out of the system. And I think, we do want to make legendaries very valuable, but we hear that feedback and totally understand it. So one of the things we're looking into now is reducing that minimum requirement from 600 to 590. And I think that'll be great. It'll allow people to take the really good, because sometimes you get two great perks and it's like, I didn't get that third, but it's still a really strong 590, 595. This will allow you to upgrade that to 600 and then from there take it all the way to 625 with the Umbral system. So I think that'll be a change that seems to be exciting to players.
Nice. So speaking of things that we've are learning in the current PTR, is there anything that we learned from past PTRs that really helped improve the PTR when right now and PTRs going forward?
Yeah, I think the biggest things we learned is you've got to make sure players can test what you're giving, right? So make sure the backstories, those are the things where you choose the character. It has all the right equipment, it has all the things you need. Make sure the crafting stations are at tier 5. Unlock all the fast travel points, give A's all. Make sure players can test. The other thing we learned is that the more we can provide patch notes about what all the changes are in the PTR, the more players can test that. And I know the patch notes weren't fully complete again this time.
They were not. So yeah.
I'm going to pause before she gets into that piece. That was one of my biggest complaints during the alpha and the beta testing. Every time that they've released, the alpha testing, but every time they've released a beta 1, beta 2, open, closed, you started from scratch. And so for those of us who wanted to get into the beta testing, but didn't have all the free time. We weren't sweaty enough to go and become quote unquote in game in like a day or two. We were kind of irrelevant to the beta testing because it took us a week or 2 weeks to get to level 60. And so that was kind of frustrating. But to open that up to PTR, where you go into PTR and you already have all of those things unlocked, like they said, the ability to test, I think that's huge. Something I wish that would have been the case in beta, at least the closed beta. So that way, open beta and the streamers and everything else weren't able to kind of ruin that in-game on day one. Roger, but the closed beta with that protected group that was in there testing, I wish they would have done that, unlocked everything so that we were able to get into the nitty gritty on day 2, 3, 4, as opposed to waiting until the last couple of days of beta. So I like it.
And that, honestly, that was a tough decision to make because the patch notes weren't done.
Yep.
So when we had the holiday, we had just the way that we moved those fixes through our branches. We didn't have the notes in a good spot at the time that we needed to start the PTR so that we could get the right amount of testing on that build. So we were like, let's just put out these patch notes that are incomplete. We'll let folks know that they're not complete, and we'll continuously update them to get more of the information in. And by not complete, it meant that there were things in the PTR that we just hadn't had the time to put into the notes yet, because that is, again, like we talked about in the last dev stream, there's a lot that goes into it. Mm-hmm. So we posted it because we wanted folks to have that first, this is the stuff that we fixed, this is what we did, there's more coming. And it was a mix of thank you for this and just utter outrage because they thought that we had made stealth changes, and we were like, no, we just were behind and we're getting them out. So they've been updated since, and they'll continue to be updated throughout the PTR. So the lesson learned there is that we need to get as many of the notes, even if they're not in the best form, we just need to get them out to the players when they start the PTR.
Yeah.
So so that was.
Yeah, and let content creators run that for you. And I'm sure there are other people like myself that are doing these reaction videos and reviews over the PTR notes. But yes, 100%, get the information out there. It doesn't have to be sexy. It doesn't have to be in this perfect format, but get it to us in the most transparent, bulky way so that we can digest it in our own way, create the communication plan around it, and be able to speak to it. That's something that the Lore Seekers, the podcast or the live show on Twitch, that was around a couple of weeks or months ago. That's what we tried to do, right? We tried to take as much information as possible and dissect it into things that we could talk about and discuss. But there were times that we didn't have all the information. So what she's getting at is perfect. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It doesn't have to be really anything other than here's the information and let us dive into it. So love it.
A miss this time. We did better than we did the last time. So we're incrementally getting better, but it definitely wasn't in the shape that we wanted it this last time.
But some people took it as a challenge to scavenger hunt and find the specific things. So speaking of the PTR, can you talk about the PTR to come out for February and when we should expect PTR releases compared to monthly releases?
Yeah, so there is a PTR for February. So the interesting thing about February, in case folks are not aware, is that February is just a bug fix month. There's no major content that's coming with the February release. We have some things that we're focusing on for that to make sure that we get a good amount of fixes in and we make a real difference for the players that have been asking for things for a long time that we've had.
Yes. Quickly, because we're about 13 minutes into a video that has 23 more minutes into it. Yes, stabilize the game. I would assume that I'm speaking for the majority of the community when I say no new content. Stabilize what we've got. We have a great game. It's a beautiful game. It, for the most part, runs really well. Use February to stabilize what we got, and then let's go crazy in March. But I agree from a community manager standpoint, from a gamer standpoint, absolutely. February, stabilize, perfect what's already out there, and then we can start getting into new content. 100% agree.
had the opportunity to work on. It's just that they haven't had the testing that they need for us to feel safe to put them out into the wild. So as far as when we start a PTR, we want to give ourselves enough time to react. So there's not a specific time frame that we're going to be pushing on a PTR, but we definitely want to give ourselves at least 2.5 weeks, generally longer, before we do a release that we would want that to be in PTR. We learned the first PTR when we gave ourselves like 7 days.
Right.
That was, we were like, we'll just do scale testing. We'll check to make sure that like the servers can handle it, and then we're good. And what we found out was that we were not good. We were the opposite of good. Players felt like we lost their trust, and we felt like we lost their trust. So we've been gaining it back since then, and so we want to continue to do that by providing the PTRs far enough in advance that we can listen to them, take their advice, and find out what the biggest sticking points are and address those before things get released into the.
So what they're talking about is the Ice Gauntlet. Or the Void Gauntlet, excuse me. The Void Gauntlet. This was this PTR that came out several months ago, where we were able to get in the PTR to test out the Void Gauntlet and some other mechanics and some other things. But they gave us like 5 days, I think 7, close to 7 days, a week to really get into the Void Gauntlet, which again, there wasn't a lot of material to go off of. So whenever it became the live production, the Void Gauntlet was broken, right? There were some broken mechanics to what happened. So that's what they're referencing is whenever the Void Gauntlet dropped, that was the PTR process.
Live game.
Yeah. Now I know that like the dev team likes to jump into the live game and interact with players there, and read chat and see what finger on the pulse of the live service. Do you guys jump into PTR?
Oh yes.
You're in there constantly?
Oh yes. It was pretty visible the last time.
Oh really?
Yeah, we ran our. Some people may have seen our Merc Guard run. That was done in the PTR last month. And then we also had scheduled some days where usually we have internal playtests for the next release. So we'll have something for the PTR. We want our players to tell us what's going on with that because we've already tested it internally with our smaller group. So we want them to kind of focus internally on future stuff. Well, last time we were like, everybody into the PTR, pile in, let's see what's going on. This is a big release. We have a lot coming up. We want to get this tested. And players noticed because we have some amazing folks on our team who have been level 60 for forever.
Right.
Like they are like the tried and true, and then you have very casual people, and we just kind of walked into some situations that maybe we shouldn't have walked into because we're like, oh, I can solo this like level 60 elite area. Why not? I was like, I'm level 60. I can go to Cutlass Keys and solo these level 40 elites. No, cannot, not a chance. So yeah, so we jump in and we'll join. It might not be noticeable because you have to have a specific build that calls you out with like different UI in chat, but they join for sure. So we just won't tell you who we are.
Yeah.
It's a secret.
All right. Awesome. Thanks. And now we have Katie and Scott back at the table, but now we're joined by Scott Geiser, the senior gameplay engineer. This first question is for you, Katie. Can you give us a little more insight when we're going to see the next round of server transfers being available? I know everyone's talking about it. Everyone wants to know.
Yeah, I want to know too. Just kidding. So we did less than ideal merges in December. So we had this grand plan to merge all of the worlds that were struggling into a world that would be good, right? So that means that either it's multiple worlds struggling into one world, and because of their populations and the type of populations that they had, that one world would now be what we consider healthy, or it was a low population world into an already healthy server. So those were our two that we were working with.
So from a lore seeker's perspective, we were into Lawland to Lapalin, which was a very, very, very low server. We had 100 people in our company, and there was at a time like 300 people playing, very low population. And we got merged into Fairy. So for us, it was actually a very seamless transition. We like woke up the next day and were part of a fairy server, and it was seamless. It was actually a flawless execution for us. But as you're hearing, it not so much for everybody.
Most often, unfortunately, or fortunately, actually, right before we were going to do those, like literally the night before we were going to announce, we discovered this housing persistence issue, which would have been really awful if that had gone out into the live world. And if we had merged worlds, it would have been really bad, and we don't want to do that. So we had to fix this housing persistence issue, which is being fixed and being tested, and it's coming out soon. And then once that's done, we need to complete that first round of merges. We're calling it Merge 1.5. So we had round 1 in December. Round 1.5 will be right after we fix the housing persistence issue, which we'll let folks know in the forums, like, hey, this is done. This is completed. I know that there's a lot of threads on it, but there's like an official post from community.
Right.
So on that post, we'll let folks know that it's been done and that we're going to move forward with round 1.5 of those merges. Once those are done, then we can open up character transfers again. So the merges are done by us. We merge worlds together. We call the final world a destination world, and the other worlds are our source worlds. Character transfers are initiated by the player. So those are not full worlds moving over, and they go by a separate but somewhat similar set of rules. And those have also been put on hold because of the housing persistence issue, because you bring your house with you, right? So until that was fixed, we couldn't do the rest of this. And we were planning to open the character. This is like, there's so much here. This is so much planning.
It's a domino effect, yeah.
It's like what we had wanted in a perfect world was that all these merges would have been done mid in December. And then right after that, we can open up the character transfer, so that after you've soaked in the world and seen whether or not this is the right world after merge for you and your company, if you decide to go somewhere else, then you have this token and you can go where you would like to go, like whichever world you're going to have the most fun playing on. Because of the persistence issue, all those plans got moved back. So once we're done with 1.5, the round 1.5 of merges, then we will open up the second round of character transfer tokens for the player initiated ones.
So it's going to be a second token and not just the first token people may have been sitting on.
And I think the high level takeaway is this is hugely important to us.
Yeah.
Both transfers and merges are a huge priority. But we're not going to break things trying to get them rushed in. So they're going to happen soon, and that's about as exact as we can get right now. But we're actively working on them.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I know the community is like, knocking down our door for that answer. So hopefully we'll get that out. Another thing people are knocking down our door for answers on is kind of the status of some of the major bugs. Scott, do you have that in your back pocket?
Yeah. So all the different gameplay teams have their own priority list of bugs, and we try and take care of the biggest ones first. For this next update, we've closed hundreds of bugs. Some of the big notable highlight ones, I know I saw a lot of videos of people drowning on land on YouTube, so that should be fixed. There was an issue blocking.
I'm not gonna lie, the bugs in this game have been hilarious. Hilarious, like in hindsight. Not while you're playing. It's super frustrating, and I know I speak for the majority of gamers for New World. It's been super frustrating. A lot of the mechanics are almost game breaking, right? Like fighting with a sword and shield and being the running in place, and you can't do certain things. Like there's a lot of game breaking issues that you laugh about. Like now, like I'm laughing about those experiences in November and December, but they've been hilarious, especially running a podcast with the Lore Seekers. It's been fun to kind of have, your drinking buddies where you kind of get to have that bar moment where you're bitching about, remember that one time when you were trying to XYZ and you auto ran right off the cliff and you weren't able to like jump back onto the ledge. Like it's been funny, but I'm glad. I'm glad that they're looking at the bugs seriously and addressing them as we go.
If you swap back to your original faction, you couldn't progress to get to the top rank anymore. So that will be fixed. And then I know another hot button issue is the Void Gauntlet sliding and the animation canceling on the bow to fire way faster than you're really supposed to. So those will be in the upcoming fix as well.
Scott didn't mention the weapon swap issue that there's been a lot of concerns about, primarily because that's not really a bug. We're going to go deep on that in a little bit with Dave Hall, as well as the weapon desync issue. We're going to have an update on that. There are a few more fixes, though, that we can talk about. We have the Outpost Rush. There's a bunch of fixes in Outpost Rush, but the one that people have been complaining about is the Brute's meatball attack is happening a little too often. So we're reducing that.
And it'll be more expensive to get the Brute as well.
Yeah, it'll be more expensive to get them. And then also we have the housing tax change. So before we had the housing tax, the players felt it was too high.
Yeah.
We've given a huge reduction in cost in that through the holiday time. Now we're going to come back and put the cost where we think it is, and it's not going to be as high as it was, and it's not going to be as low as it's been discounted to. We think it's going to be a happy median that works for everybody.
Okay. I know we talked about it a lot in the last previous dev update video, really like dug deep into exploits, duplication bugs, bans. What has happened between that video and today?
Yeah, so there's been a lot going on in that regard. It's one of the team's biggest priorities. Obviously, like the health of the game economies is kind of like central to our game, so we need to do whatever we can to protect that. So, it's a lot of different teams are contributing there, like the customer service team. They're changing some of their workflows to make it quicker for them to respond to reports from players about bots and things that you see in the game, as well as like gold seller spam. So, player reports are a huge part of how we're able to combat these things. And so, that it's super helpful, and reducing the amount of time from when the report's sent to when customer service rep is like looking at it and investigating it makes a huge difference. Also, like I said in the last update, like we don't just use the reports, we also have to correlate that with telemetry because we don't want reports to be weaponized against players and things like that.
Exactly.
So we've done a lot of work in getting that telemetry data more easily accessible to customer service so that when they do get a report, they can say like, oh, and this player has already like triggered these alarms or whatever, and so we can action them quicker as well. And then finally, we're always investigating bots and different bot programs, and we work with our partners at Easy Anti-Cheat so that they can identify signatures for some of these things, and EAC can handle identifying and banning machines that are using these bot programs as well. And so I think since the last time we talked, I think maybe about 9,000 or so bot accounts have been actioned on.
Awesome.
And then I think maybe...
Sorry, that's pathetic. I want to vent for like 5 seconds. It's pathetic that there's an industry out there that does this, right? There's a group of individuals, and that's a lot. That's a company size, like an actual company-sized group of gamers that are farming these, the bot farmers. That's pathetic. Just play the damn game. I don't know. There's my reaction. Jeez.
About 600 more just that we're running programs maybe we haven't identified, but that we've banned as well just through investigation.
Yeah. Has the PTR been helpful in finding some of these things? Feedback from the community and reports from the PTR?
Not for bots specifically, but for exploits for sure.
Great.
Yeah, for sure. I've gotten quite a few messages on the forums, direct messages. Please do not post publicly about exploits, please. So I've gotten a lot of messages, and so have some of the other developers and community managers informing us of things that people are able to exploit on the PTR. So we've been able to address that before it's gone live and become a bigger problem for folks. So that has been great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Looking forward a little bit, what are some of the bug fixes we're going to look for in February? Are there like specific ones people should be aware of? Ones that may have taken a little bit longer that we're now finally getting into to February? Yeah,
for sure. So there's a lot of bug fixes. There's not really one that's outstanding because this isn't a major feature update. We're not making those like big content changes. But we do have some bug fixing verticals that we're focusing on. So the two that are near and dear to me that I know that the team is working on is they're doing a full pass on missing ingredients and recipes, mats, and searchability in the trading post for those items. They're doing a full pass on that. And then also perks and abilities. So bug fixing on those, which I know is gonna be really fun and exciting for the players to finally like not have to get to me on the forums and tell me about how wrong these things are. I know that like we are listening for sure. It just is, these things are really big and sometimes they touch a lot of different files and it's dangerous for us to put into the smaller updates. So we've been working on those. Those are two that are near and dear to me, although there's definitely more verticals that we're looking into.
Yeah, another one that's important to me is throughout development, when you add stuff to the game, you sometimes break existing stuff. And this is manifested in ways that frustrate me through missions and quests not being completable. So we have a goal to fix every one of those. So we're going to go through, hey, the quest marker is taking you to the wrong spot, or the drop isn't happening, or in some cases we've broken something like in the housing quest line, or the faction quest line, the faction changing quest line I meant. To have all of those to make sure that those are all bulletproof as well. Like this period of February, it's exciting because there are often different people making features than fixing bugs, but to get that pure focus on bugs at this point is really exciting.
Nice.
And we know that people want it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really great. All right, thanks for coming, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Fix the bugs. Stabilize.
All right, and now we're joined by Dave Verifei again, but we have another Dave at the table, Dave Hall, the player experience lead. So this question is going to be for you first. The Great Axe, the Rapier, the Fire Staff, the Ice Gauntlet, these weapons probably have the most discussion threads in the forums, with players thinking that they're too weak, other players thinking they're too strong. How does the team feel about that?
That's a great question. Yeah, we have a lot of feedback on these weapons, and we're constantly looking at it. And I think we feel like we're getting to a place that's very close. And we are going to be making some changes to these weapons, but they're going to be minor. So there's no major issues coming up with us. We don't feel like there's any major changes coming down the pipe for these. So we want to make sure we're going to be doing slight balances to them and moving from there.
Is that something people will be able to experience on the PTR? Maybe coming up.
Maybe up in the future months. It's not going to be on the current PTR. It'll be probably on the next PTR.
Yeah, I mean, I think every PTR we try to introduce a couple balance changes, and like Dave said, I think we're getting close. Balance is super hard, especially in a game like ours where there's so many different types of play, right? Like there's solo PvE, group PvE, there's small combat, then there's war. Like there's so many different modes. It's hard to get the balance perfect, right? So, but I think we're at the stage where we're going to be making smaller changes, letting them percolate, right? Like sometimes the small changes have way broader impacts than you think about in terms of the meta. So there are some changes coming, but they're going to be smaller in nature, and we're going to be keeping our eye on it.
Okay. Things that have small, impacts. Do you have an update?
So kind of an operational response to that, but that's also called like strive cycles or a glide path. Like you don't want to over-index and like completely go beyond your goal, right? And then you do this like left, right, and you stay on the outsides of your goal. It's better to make slow integral changes, measure those changes, and then kind of earn your way up to your goal. It makes sense. It's a least wasteful approach on achieving a goal. So rather than course correcting and then course correcting in this major flip-flop or dichotomy or dynamic of decision making, it's make small changes, measure the impact of that change, and then you'll eventually get to that goal. Sorry, nerding out. Just from an operational perspective, that is the thought process behind what they just said.
On the desync issue.
I do, yes. So we have a strike team now formed around the desync issues, and we already just put out something in our weekly, which I think came out. By the time the video comes out, it'll be live.
We're living in the past, right?
Yes. And so we already got one major change in there, and we have a lot of smaller changes coming in on the desynced issues, but it is our top priority right now. We have a strike team associated with it.
Awesome, sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, just real quick on that, I think it's important for players to realize there's not like a desync issue, right? That's like causing everything. It's a bunch of different little changes that have caused the server and the client to sort of be mismatched, and they've got a team now focused on this, and they're going through them one by one. They're trying to fix the most onerous ones first, the worst ones, and then go down the list. But it's going to take a while to get them all out, but I think it is a focus now, and they're working on the big ones up front.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like people are investigating. We're hyper looking into it.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Dave V, is there anything you can share about the future of combat that people might not know about yet?
Not too much more than we talked about last time. I think, bugs and balance are a big issue for us still and a big focus for us still. So, the desync issue, and I think Dave may be talking about weapon swapping next. Some of those big bugs around combat are a high priority for us. So that is taking a lot of the focus of the team. Balance we're going to continue to looking at. So those are some of the big focuses. On top of that, weapons are still a thing. We are working on, and I think we talked about it last time, Blunderbuss is going to be the next weapon we're releasing. We're heavily working on that. We're playing it a lot internally in the team. It's super fun. Definitely brings a new play style to ranged weapons. So we're working on that on future weapons. So that's the main focus of the team right now.
Yeah, Scott brought it up a little bit earlier, but what are we doing about the weapon swap delay that some players are experiencing?
So in our next PTR, we're going to actually have an update for the players to try out. We have a backtick check on our weapon swap now that's going to really help with the confirmation that you have done a swap, basically. So when you hit that button, you're going to know that swap is going to occur, and it's going to be much more reliable than it has been in the past. It is important to note, though, that we do not have instant cancels in for our swaps. That is a big topic for us and something we're not ready to tackle at the moment. It's quite a game changer if we did that right now. So you will still have to wait for the windows for the weapon swap, but it will be queued up correctly now.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for the update on combat, guys. For this last segment, we answered a lot of questions earlier in the show and all the other segments. We were scouring the forums, we were scouring Reddit, social media, so it was from, directly from the mouths of our community. And so for this last segment, I want to throw some grab bag, questions from some of our content creators who are, playing our game a lot. So this first question is going to be for you, Scott. All right, so are there any plans for expanding content in the open world, such as random incursions or events or dynamic events, stuff of that nature?
Yeah, unfortunately I can't get specific, but I think I've said a few times, and I'll say it again, is the more dynamic the world is, the better it is for us. When you revisit places in the world, we want it to feel different and to feel new and fresh and exciting. So this is something we're going to carry on a lot going forward, and you can expect to see future updates to completely support open world gameplay, more dynamic gameplay, for sure.
Okay, great. Dave, this one is for you. Can you talk about the philosophy of bumping gear score so soon?
Yeah. So the reason we're bumping the gear score now is really to tie in with Mutators, right? Like those two features are very well paired. We wanted people to climb the difficulty ranks and increase their gear score as they were doing it. And features like Mutators take a long time to build, right? Like it's a complex feature that involves a lot of the game. So we sort of made this decision based on information a long time ago, and we thought this would be the right decision, to increase gear score and have Mutators coming out now. I think if we were making that decision today, I think we see other priorities like some of the bugs and other things that we would focus on, and we might not make that decision today. But just because it's tied with Mutators, and we really wanted to get that feature to players, that's why it's happening.
Yeah. Anticipating what players want before your game is out in the wild isn't always the easiest thing in the world.
Right.
We have huge conviction around Mutators, as a long-term, healthy, really strong feature for New World. But in hindsight, maybe it is a little earlier than it could have been.
Agree.
Okay. Let's see. This one's for you. Are there any planned changes or like major overhauls coming to War and Invasion? How does the team feel about their current state?
Yeah, as a developer, you're never happy with your feature. You always want to make it better. So I think we have a lot of things that will be coming down the pipe, smaller, mainly for these ones. Right now, our top priorities are War Declaration and some of the war performance. There's definitely some issues there that we've been trying to get better over the time. It's getting a little bit better. We still have a long way to go, though, I think.
Yeah, and I think longer term, no commitment to time or anything here, but we'd love to see casual versions of each of those to get more players the opportunity to try, some of our backup box features like War and Invasion. I think that'd be really cool, and I have a lot of fun playing them, so I'd like to get more people in there.
Yeah, that's great. Dave, the new PvP missions on paper looked great, but in reality are some of the more mundane features of the game, considering it's one of the core features. Can we expect some improvement in the PvP missions, or
Yeah, so I mean, I think the changes to the PvP missions, like the actual missions themselves, I do like them better. They're focused more on the actual PvP activity rather than just doing things well flagged. So I think that is an improvement. But yeah, the whole process of flipping it.
If you're new to New World, what they're referencing is your faction quests, other PvP. They were literally just flag up and do the exact same thing you were doing in PvE. So it'd be like taking a group of 4 or 5 of you, flagging for PvP, going out of the hamlet and securing like a supply box. So you'd go and you'd secure the supply box and come back. That's a PvE mission. Right. You're not having to interact with people. You were literally just going and completing that mission and then going back to the hamlet to turn it into your faction quest giver. So what they're saying is that they've changed those quests. It's not so much going and doing something in the environment. It's now actually based around player versus player. So I think that's a really good point. It's still kind of monotonous. It's still kind of mundane, which is the feedback you're hearing. It's still a little tedious, but these are daily faction quests. Like, I don't know how much more dynamic they can be personally, but
Territory, is a little cumbersome. And a certain part of that is by design, right? Like, we don't want that to be super, super easy that you can just flip on a whim, sorry. So yeah, I can understand the feedback here. This is something we're looking at. It's not an immediate priority on something that we're going to be jumping on, but we're going to keep our eyes on it.
Okay. And the open world, the environment of New World is really what makes it fantastic. This person said they'd love to see an arena built into the side of a cliff or a coliseum, similar PvP area where people can like watch other people fighting inside. Can we, expect to see some small scale PvP arenas with like maybe matchmaking systems? This is for anybody that wants to answer.
Yeah, I think just to start off, I think our small scale PvP is one of the best parts of our game. It really shines our combat when we're playing that, and it's something we absolutely want to support. And we do have some things coming down the pipe. I don't know if anybody go a little further.
I mean, it's pretty early to talk about them, but I think
Right.
Arenas is something that we're looking into. I think if we do it, or when we do it, it will likely be in a phased approach, right? Like we will release an early version of it that may not be as fully featured, and we'll continue to grow it over time.
Iterated on the PTR, that type of stuff,
With
as
players.
with all other new features that we might introduce. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. Like, I would like to be in a fixed where I know it's like 3v3 or 5v5 or whatever the numbers are, PvP experience, because it very rarely ends up that way when you're playing in the open world. So
Yeah.
I think it'd be exciting, and you can't hide in a 3v3. So
Right. Like what we
Always good
see,
stuff.
happening in the open world right now. People will create a giant circle and make a fight club of sorts and bracket and all of that stuff. So it's exciting to see it already happening and that we're noticing it. All right, well that's great. Thanks for the answers, guys.
Thanks.
All right, we covered a lot today, and I think there was some good information that we got out there. Last time you guys did a run of the Merkgard area. Are you going to be doing another run for the community?
Yeah, last night our World Experience team did a playthrough of the Dynasty shipyards on Mutation 4. Stumbled a little bit. It'll be a good watch. Hope everyone enjoys it.
You'll have to tune in to find out how that one goes. And you let us know that you found the first one valuable, so we decided we're going to do a couple more of these. Please let us know if you want us to continue to do them and you continue to find them valuable. I think we'll find the time to get some more transparency out to the community. On the next episode, we're going to be sitting down with our customer service team, kind of deep diving into how they deal with bots and bans and player reports and things of that nature. We're going to look right around what February is up to, and then looking a little forward into March.
Yep.
All right, so we'll see you next time.
Love it. Okay, so there you go. Our very first reaction video on Sulyce Gaming. I hope you enjoyed it. Some great information. If you play New World, there is some great information there. It's kind of uplifting, for me personally, it's kind of uplifting that they're focusing in February on stabilizing the game. I said it several times in the last 54 minutes. It's good that they're stabilizing in February so that when we do look forward into March with the new content, perhaps, we can do so with confidence. I think that's what we've been lacking in New World, right? Is kind of confidence of what we can expect, what we should expect as gamers and community managers and whatnot. So I hope you enjoyed it. More of these to come. Again, please join our Discord. We're about 250 strong. A very good participation in New World, but there's also so many other things, from affinity groups, the Brothers Keepers, Shield Maidens. It's really interesting there. From tech flexing to these other conversations that are going on, to include flexing out into other games. So when Amazon Game Studios comes out with Lost Ark, we're going to have a Lost Ark effort. There's already a Dungeons and Dragons and a Magic the Gathering channel as well. So again, discord.gg/Sulyce Gaming. Links are below in the description. Please like, please subscribe, provide feedback. I'm very, very open to feedback. And again, you will more than likely see our New World Governor, Lore Seeker Champ, involved in this content creation as well. So look forward to that and some live streaming right now on Twitch. More than likely switching over to YouTube, but stand by for that. Remember, mission first, people always. Skull family.